Hello, everybody.
Hello, sorry, I lost the exact moment that we were starting, but thank you for saying hello, Taylor.
It's no problem. I was just wondering, I was like, what are you looking at? Is it perhaps a gecko or something on the wall that had caught your attention?
Don't say that. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Wild Moments, brought to you by explore.org and, of course, Africam. It's a pleasure to have you on board. We are live and interactive, so send through your questions and your comments. We love to hear from you. And the lovely Taylor is joining us and has decided to talk about geckos from the get-go. Oh, I feel like there's a dad joke in there. Just couldn't make it happen. Oh well.
I'll be better.
So, um, I don't like geckos. I know it's not a nice thing for a guide or environmentalist scientist or biologist or whatever to say, but it's true. And today we will be looking at geckos and lizards or skinks and snakes. We're going to have a bit of a reptilian afternoon with all of you. So let's have a look at. Oh, well, before we have a look, let us first see how Taylor is doing. How are you doing, Taylor?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm prepared with lots of books and
Fantastic.
all sorts of things. Yeah, but I'm actually quite sad. Normally, there's a big gecko that lives in the house and is quite often on the ceiling, but not here today. Typical.
Ah, thank goodness. I don't have a problem with normal geckos. I mean, with like thick-toed geckos. My problem is with house geckos. Tropical house geckos. Those
I
ones.
do.
That's my.
Not
It's a
your
secret
favorite.
shame.
That's okay.
Um, thank you, thank you. It's important for me to know that it's okay. It's a secret shame. Anyway, we
Conversely,
have a
but
couple hellos. Before we get into the first clip, we've got Zygote that says hi Trishala and Taylor. Rolling Trouble says hello Trishala and Taylor from Washington. Hello. Suki V, gosh, I haven't heard your name in such a long time. Thank you for joining us. You say you made it. Hello to all sun and spring here. Lovely to know that. Dear NC, you say hello from Seattle. You're ready with your coffee. Always love to know what partner you have with you beverage wise when you're watching this show. Mindy Tillapau, you say the dynamic duo rides again. Hello, Trish and Taylor. Or shall you call us Thelma and Louise since we are ride or die?
There we go.
Andy, you say good day, everyone. I figured I would slither in for the show. Oh, Andy, I like it. You say sounds exciting. Kara says hi, Trishalla and Taylor. Amberco says hello, all. Great to be here. Happy Thursday and thank you. And then finally, Jirel says good morning, ladies. Snakes and lizards exciting. You've got your Java and are ready to learn more about the wildlife. Wonderful. Last one though, Bob from Kalamazoo says good day, lovely ladies. Good day, Bob. All right, well, let's get straight into it and have a look at our first of the slithery, slimy, scaly, wonderful animals. And this one is one of my favorites. It's Monty the Python. Oh, you go, Monty. God, I love this snake.
Now it's actually quite well, I think we're going to be able to see how big Monty really is.
Yeah,
He
and
looks
I don't
much.
know. Sorry, say again, Taylor.
No, I was going to say looks much larger than we were sort of suspecting. Is it the
Yeah,
same? Do you think it's the same snake? I mean, it's very hard to
I
tell
mean,
because you know.
yeah.
Where's the spot pattern? Hang on. That is a big snake. That's not a small. That is really not a small python.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, and then also, when we see him on the branches, he's kind of coiled up a little bit,
Yeah,
or rather, so I think this is awesome because we get to see him straight. Oh, look at him.
absolutely.
Look at you
Where did he
go.
go? Oh, he's gone. That's terrifying. Murky waters at night. There he is. He's going for a little swim.
Oh, this is amazing.
What a cool
That was
scene.
that was so cool. Now, if you're wondering if snakes swim, there you go. Most of them can. In fact, I think all of them can. It's just that some swim better than others. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and obviously it has to do, well, with anything in water, it has to do with the displacement of water. Sorry, I just can't help myself when it comes to these things. It's called Archimedes' principle. I know that might mean nothing to you, but I can't help myself. I have to say this, otherwise it just feels like incomplete information. But when something is put into water, the weight of that thing, whether it's you, me, Taylor, Monty, the weight of that thing has to outweigh the weight of that water to be buoyant. So if as long as the snake is lighter than that amount of mass in water, then it will float. And with snakes, usually that is the case. And also they have these massive sacs of air in their body, like most of us, which helps them keep afloat too. So if you were
Very
wondering,
interesting.
there you go.
I was actually wondering. That's exactly what I was wondering. So, Trish, if we had to think about how big Monty is, because like this is the first time I've ever seen Monty all stretched out like this, what would be your guess?
Um, I mean, we've seen this pan from afar before, and this, you see the edge of the pan here on the right is actually not very, very wide. I would say it's probably a meter and a bit, but Monty's taking up maybe two of those. So
Mm.
I'd say he's about 1.8 to 2 meters. That would be my estimate, my guesstimate.
I think that's a pretty good guess. I would be maybe even inclined to say just a little bit longer, but I'm also, a true safari guide that's been in the industry for so long. So my storytelling capabilities and sizes is normally a lot bigger than what the animal actually is. And it's a sickness, unfortunately. It's not something that I'm able to control anymore. But
I
I was looking at the thickness as well. He's massive. He's not a small
Yes,
snake.
no. And I mean, I suffer from the opposite problem, which is being conservative because of science. So, it might be something in between. In fact, that's why we make a great pair, Taylor,
Hmm, exactly.
where
Both
he's
sides of the spectrum.
exactly. And I
But
think
this is still
for, sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say, even though I say it's a big snake, it's still quite small for a python. But sadly, these days we don't get to see big 6 meter long pythons. I don't even think I've ever seen a python over maybe the biggest just over 4 meters, and that was pretty big.
Yeah. I mean, those 6 meter pythons that we read about, I mean, I can't even imagine, to be honest. The pythons I've seen have never ever reached that amount. What I was saying is that I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just pulling out of my head now. For pythons, I think it's about 2 to 2.5 meters when they mature, and then obviously they continue to grow. But I think they mature at 2.5 meters. And
That I think.
this is, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's something really interesting that you've just pointed out there, is that quite often it's got nothing to do with age for reptiles when with sexual maturity. I just know that, I used to do it, I always used to get stuck on it's X amount of years, but if they don't reach a certain size, then they're not going to hit sexual maturity, and that's obviously because of a long list of reasons. You need to be super healthy and yeah,
Yeah.
to get to that size.
And this is particularly interesting because when we've had these discussions about Monty previously, we've spoken about juvenile and younger snakes engaging in that kind of behavior a lot more often than mature snakes do. But to me, Monty would fall almost into that mature category, which makes his behavior even more interesting and exceptional. So very, very cool. We've got a whole lot coming through. Mandolin, you say hello from sunny and chilly Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, that must be confusing. I hope that you're doing okay. Hello from Oregon, from Jason. You say out of the dangerous reptiles in South Africa, How could one not love geckos? Jason, let me tell you why. You all want to know, let me tell you why. So, part of my childhood was spent in Australia and part of it was spent in South Africa. So oftentimes we'd come to South Africa for a family holiday to meet, the rest of the family. And so I had two young cousins, much younger than I. So just imagine sharing a bed. There's me that's about 15 years old. There's about another who is about maybe 10 and another that is about 5. And here we are, just a couple girls, and going to fall asleep. And this massive house gecko fell onto my forehead. So, and then it was just, it was chaos. Everyone started screaming. Little one jumping in on the bed, off the bed. The middle one is a little bit quiet, so she's kind of like, just like this. And it made this horrible sound. So I like them from afar, but please don't come near me. And they make this sound, this, and that's how you know you gotta get out. Get out of there.
So never mind any kind of horror movie and all the sounds that come with that. If we had to put on a very eerie scene and have that clicking noise, would that just make you switch the TV off and be like, right, I'm done sleeping with all the lights on tonight?
I'm gone. It is actually embarrassing. When I find him in my house, it's like, okay, I'm brave. I'm going to take this gecko out. The minute it falls on the floor or something, I'm out of there. I'm gone. On top of something in a room with the door closed. It's embarrassing. Zygote, you say, our house listens at night, make a nice call. Tick, tick, tick in descending order. I feel like you're all just trying to unnerve me, and it's not going to work. Rolling Trouble, you say, woohoo, Monty, absolutely. And then Kaoru, you also commented on his size. You say, wow, uncoiled, he's so long. He really is quite long. Lolo53, you say, hey, Monty, first time I see you off your favorite branch. Hopefully one day I will visit Monty in person. I will make sure that I tell him that. Next city, you say it's a different snake. Its behavior this past week was clearly a different python. Well, it could be. We don't know his his pattern, not his spot pattern, but we don't know his pattern well enough to be able to identify him. But given his location, we were just assuming that it is Monty. But definitely something to think about. Ooh. Durell, you say,
I'm not sure what's happened to Trisha's line, if she's still there, or if it's me that's frozen. We'll have to wait and see. But now I'm sort of hanging at the edge of my seat as to what Trish was actually going to say. I'm waiting for... Oh, there we go.
Am I back?
Welcome back. I tried to take over. I had the reins, but don't think I was holding them correctly. But now we're all sitting at the edge of our seat. You have to repeat that question again, because I went, what does Durell want to know?
Durell wants to know, does Monty go into the water to eat fish? What do you think?
It was something I really wanted to bring up there, because it does look like quite a large python, but they're so fast moving. And as we have all learned about nature, how opportunistic animals really are, from birds to various arthropods. We put this list of what they do eat and what they do and don't do, and then they do the complete opposite. I reckon if there was a fish that wasn't particularly fast swimming, why not? But it's not something that I've ever witnessed, and I think it would be quite a difficult thing to sort of capture. But I don't know. I wouldn't put it past, honestly, all the crazy things that I've seen and creatures eating things that they're not supposed to. I really wouldn't put it past the pie. Put it past the python. Sorry, I was speaking in like a snake for a second. Weird. And I don't know. It's obviously not up there on its preferred prey species, but again, if there's the opportunity to catch something, then why not?
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think he's going in there to catch fish, but if there's a fish there, he's going to eat it. The opportunity presents itself. Okay, there's so many questions coming through, but we are already halfway through our time. I'll try to get through to them, but let's move on to our next clip for now. It's a lovely skink doing something very special.
Ooh.
Oh. Oh, very
wow.
cool.
Look at how quickly the skin's coming off.
Yeah.
Doing the old belly scoot.
Yes. I love how it's like, yeah, I'll get a snack in between my shedding.
It's actually so clever, utilizing sort of the deck, and you can see it's splintering quite a bit, and that skin is very well. The skin that it's now sloughing is so delicate. Actually, quite
Yeah.
easily hook on any of those little splinters. Oi, hello.
Oh.
That's actually such a clever. You can see that even the varnish is coming off of that deck, so that's perfect. Perfect rough surface. Looks a bit panicked
Yeah.
now.
I mean, obviously it's a vulnerable position to be in, but at this point, it's almost off.
I like that it's just sort of waving in the wind now. Oh, he goes.
So most reptiles have to shed in some way. I know when we think about terrapins or tortoises or turtles, we think, oh, we don't see them shed, but actually they do. They just do it in much smaller phases. So it might even be a scale at a time. And with snakes, it's usually in one go. With lizards, I've always seen it in patches. But this was a good patch. This was a good amount that came.
Yeah, that's the most I've ever seen kind of come off at once. And it's just as they eat and as they grow, for me, I'm growing at the moment. So I've got to buy, a bigger pair of pants and a bigger shirt, but they can't go and do that. So, quite a cool feature to be able to just stretch out of your skin essentially. Do you
Yeah,
know
and I
exactly
mean,
how that mechanism works?
I do to an extent. So normally new scales, or for example, with fish, scales develop from the dermis, which is the layer just inside of the epidermis, which is the one that's on the top. But for reptiles, it happens at the epidermis. So right at the top, the new scales are starting to form, and it's just bits of skin that become keratinized. So they become hard and kind of calloused, and then they turn into these scales. And then what they do is they secrete a kind of liquid. Oh, it's just a secretion. I mean, it's a little bit oily. And then that secretion sits between the new scales on the epidermis and the old ones. So that's what helps to push them out. And then sometimes they might even puff themselves up a little bit to kind of more space between the new and the old scales. And then, like we've seen here, they'll rub themselves against something rough and try to break an opening. And I mean, like we all know, when we pull the skin from the sides of our nails, you just need that one opening, that one bit, and then everything else unravels.
It's
That's as
quite a
far as I
tedious.
know.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's quite a tedious process. And do you think, I mean, I imagine so, just looking at how vigorously it moves around, it's quite an energy consuming sort of process to kind of go through. And if you've ever watched like snakes, I think lizards and have it a bit easier, but if you ever watched a snake try and shed its skin, obviously it's a lot more difficult not having any appendages to really help wriggle around. It takes forever, and the frustration, and you see them going over the same little, like, branch or whatever they found to just try and hook one part of the skin to try and pull it over the head. That doesn't look like a fun process.
No, and also it disables you from doing much else. So you are in such a vulnerable state. You can't really eat, because if you eat, then you're going to change the size of your body, and everything is quite perfect for the size that you are. So you need to pull back like this. If you get too fat during that time, it's not going to pull over as easily, things like that. So it just feels so inconvenient, to say the least.
But pretty impressive how that skink was able to do that. Looked like a common skink by the looks of it.
See, now these guys, I don't mind these guys. They have color to them, so it's all good. Tris Visop, you say, hello, sorry to be late. I'm glad I managed to join the show at last. Well, welcome. And no worries that you're late. Amako, you say, hugs, Trishala. Thank you. Your fear is spiders because of a few childhood experiences, and you understand. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I feel like this is not ever going to leave me. I should have never said this on the show. Shouldn't have.
Well, we live in learn.
Kaoru, you'd like to know, how often do they molt? As far as I know, young reptiles will molt more often because they're growing more and quite a lot in small periods. But as far as I know, even as adults, they will molt periodically as well. I'm not sure how often a year, though. For me, it makes sense once a year, but I'm not sure.
I wonder if that again depends on seasons, how how warm it's been, how much food's been available, and I'm not 100% sure. That I'll have to check out if that can affect them sort of shedding regularly, but I don't know off the top of my head.
So from what I've read, the whole process of shedding is kind of triggered by hormonal influences.
Oh, okay.
And hormonal influences are usually triggered by things like day length, how much daylight there is, things like that. So, I mean, I think a guess would be once a year. And I think it would be too vulnerable to be more than once a year, and probably unnecessary. But again, that's just me thinking out loud. Tris Visop, you say Monty eats sometimes several times a day.
Wow.
So recommending feeding schedule for snakes in captivity like once in a week or even 2 weeks now seems like it's starving them. I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's the same for any animal in captivity. They are fed periodically. But animals in the wild, even those animals in captivity, their body is very used to having.
I think this is the part where I try and figure out what Trish is about to say. Don't know too much about animals in captivity. I feel like I'm quite fortunate that I've just experienced them out in the wild. But yes, internet crisis in South Africa can be a bit tricky at times, and this tends to happen. But she's back.
Am I back?
You're back.
I'm so sorry. I have no idea what is happening today. Anyway, did you finish off that question, Taylor?
I didn't. I didn't know exactly where you were going to go with that. You just got to the part where you said, but snakes in captivity, and then that's it. And then that's all we got. So we didn't get very much of what you went into detail.
So I was just saying that even animals in captivity, even though they're not eating as often as animals that are in the wild, they're not being starved, because Monty's going to go through periods, maybe in winter, where he's not going to eat much for several weeks. So there's this feast and famine kind of pattern is fine. And I think that animals in captivity, their body is used to that too, even though they don't get it. They don't get to practice it.
I have a question. So I've been around a lot of conservationists and a lot of working dogs that are, out and part of anti-poaching teams. And one of the things that they do is they don't feed their dogs at set times. Obviously, because you've probably seen if you've got a dog at home, or even your cat, and you feed them at a specific time every single day, before you even realize what time it is, they're sitting there waiting, going like, hey, I'm ready for my food. But this can affect their workflow, because some dogs can be quite stubborn and be like, no, I'm not working until I get fed. So they try and keep it quite random. Do you think it would be important, or is it something that's done in captivity? Do they change up their feeding times, or do they stick to a regime? Because I'd be inclined to try and make it as wild as possible, kind of not know when you're going to get your next meal, and so that it's not the same time. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they do
I think
yeah.
I think that makes sense. I mean, I don't know what they do in captivity, but I mean, in captivity, it also comes down to people and the shifts and which person has which shift and how many animals they've got to feed. So I reckon they probably do it consistently. But I think that's a really good way to do it because I mean, apart from making sure the dogs work when they need to work, it also helps in this understanding that you will get fed. But when exactly that happens depends.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Taylor and I, we chat a lot. And all of you,
sorry.
you've been sending me lots of questions. Let's go on.
So here we have a girdled lizard in a rock crevice. What is in your mouth? It was eating something. Looks like it's definitely eating something. Are you back, Trish? I'm not sure if Trish is back. It seems like her internet keeps dropping. But if I'm not mistaken, this is out in at the Olifant's camera. So it looks like a piece of granite that the girdled lizard is tucked sort of away in. And girdled lizards can be quite difficult to identify. I believe that you have all said that you suspect that it's a Van Dam's girdled lizard. I agree with you, and I'm just looking at the sort of brown and yellow bands that you can find on it. That's quite typical to, of course, see. Hello. Coming out.
I am back. Hello.
Oh, you're back. There you are. Trisha's back. Trisha, I was just talking about what species of what species of girdled lizard this is, and that it's in a granite, looks like a granite outcrop of some sort in little crevice. That's a really amazing cave for this little creature to sort of live in. And just sort of poking its head out, having a little look.
Oh, this is stunning. I mean, when it comes to the species of lizards, to be quite honest, I'm not great. You can see, I mean, quite obviously it's a girdled lizard. You can see by the shape of the scales. But when it comes down to the actual species, I'll have to have a look. But Van Dam's lizard is probably not a bad guess.
Yeah, but it can be really tricky, and something that's super varied in reptiles, I'm sorry if I've repeated this before, is colorations, depending on their geographical location. It's unbelievable how varied the colors are, but I would go with Van Dam's. They're quite common in the Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces, which is the area where, well, it's in Limpopo, where that camera is. But a beautiful thing. I think those are referred to as the original sun gazers, that, sort of, they always just come out and sit. I suppose agamas as well kind of look like that, but little dragons, the girdled lizards. Yeah, funny looking.
They do look like little dragons.
Yeah. So next time if you ever do go on a safari, don't write the reptiles off. It's very easy to find them. First thing in the morning is awesome. Check out those rocky outcrops, even just a flat rock surface. And then in the afternoons again too. You'll be surprised what you see.
It is always exciting to find them because we spend so much time looking at the bigger animals, and that's fantastic too. But when you see these smaller things, it's very special. Okay, we could not conclude this day without having a look at the gecko, which has caused so much uproar. So let's go on to our next clip and have a look. Lovely. I don't have a huge problem because it's got color and it's quite large, but it still gives me a bit of the creeps.
It's Trish, can you remind me which camera this is on? Sorry, I've completely forgotten. Do you know by any?
I'm not sure which camera this was on, although I'm sure Chris will let me know.
The reason why I'm asking is that if you've ever had a look at the differences between a Bibron's and a Turner's thick-toed gecko, it's almost impossible to tell the difference apart, at least for me. But they're separated by location. So if this is in the Lowveld area, which I suspect most of the cameras are, then this should absolutely be a Turner's thick-toed gecko.
Oh, nice. So it is, well, we think it's from Kruger-Shalati. Pretty sure it's from Kruger-Shalati.
And then it'll almost certainly be a Turner's. Oh, look at its
Oh,
feet.
look
Look how it's walking.
So cool. If there's one thing I really love about geckos, it's the fact that they can hold on with their sticky feet. I'm sorry, we're going over time now, but a lot of the time we learn from nature and we try to incorporate really efficient functions and mechanisms that we see in nature into the way that we operate. And the function of the gecko's sticky feet has been used to create little sticky kind of paddles for humans to climb up walls. And I think that with the current technology, a 90 kg man was able to climb 8 meters high using these paddles that look like gecko feet, essentially.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And then also for bandages, some medical facilities have been trialing this technology to help it stick. So you don't need actual sticky bandages, because we all know how it is to rip that off.
No.
And I mean, we wouldn't be able to finish without mentioning the van der Waals force, which is what allows the geckos to stick in that way. So there's no sticky pad, there's no mucus, there's nothing like that that's on the gecko's foot. But instead there are many millions of tiny hairs called setae, and those setae have additional tiny protrusions called scapulae. And what those do is that, because a surface looks smooth to us, glass looks smooth to us, but actually there's tons of contours, tons of little scratches and things like that we can't see. And those tiny little hairs and the scapulae, those get into those surfaces, into the breaks in that surface. And it makes so much contact, because there's so much surface area, that the molecules on those hairs and the molecules on that surface start to interact and create a positive force that allows it to stick. That's what van der Waals force is. It's a very weak electromagnetic force that works on uncharged molecules. And as soon as those uncharged molecules in a small area with a small distance between them come together, they can charge and be positive and get stuck onto something. And of course, that stickiness stops as soon as it lifts up its foot and falls on 3 small girls' heads.
I'm sure you all noticed the difference that when we came out of that clip, how my face was kind of in the camera like that, and Trish was, she had her binoculars out looking at the screen. She was just getting into it at all. That's really interesting. Trish, again, I just want to say thank you so much. And I would have paid attention in biology and physics classes, I suppose in chemistry too, if you were my teacher. I really do love the way, all of your explanations, and it makes it just so much easier for myself and I suppose those of you at home to just understand how these very intricate details to nature and how things sort of work, and just being able to explain them in a way that I don't feel silly. So thank you.
Aw, thank you. I love that being a guide allows us to bring together chemistry, biology all into one, because it all works together, essentially. Thank you, Taylor. That was very, very nice. And thank you all. We have now gone 4 minutes over time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions and your comments. It was lovely. You have had so many, but unfortunately we're out of time. So we'll see you again too. And thank you, Taylor, for joining us. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye.